Testing. Welcome to prayer meeting. The opening hymn is 115, constantly abiding. 115, constantly abiding. There's a peace in my heart that the world never knew, a peace it cannot take away. Though the trials of life may surround like a cloud, I've a peace that has come there to stay. constantly abiding. Jesus is mine, constantly abiding, rapture divine. He never leaves me lonely, whispers oh so kind, I will never leave thee, Jesus is mine. All the world seems to sing of a Savior and King, when peace sweetly came to my heart. Troubles all fled away, night turned to day. Oh Jesus, how glorious thou art, constantly abiding. Jesus is mine, constantly abiding, rapture divine. He never leaves me lonely, whispers oh so kind, I will never leave thee, Jesus is mine. This treasure I have in a temple of clay, these footstool I roam, but is coming to take me some glorious day to the heavenly home, constantly abiding. Jesus is mine, constantly abiding, rapture divine. He never leaves me lonely, whispers oh so kind, I will never leave thee, Jesus is mine. Amen. Our next hymn is 116. Welcome to the Blessed Hope Bible-Presbyterian Church prayer meeting. 116, Higher Ground. 116, Higher Ground. I'm pressing on the onward way, tracing every day, as I onward bound, Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand on Christ the rock and not on sand, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I want to live above the world. God set me aheard. Don Williams caught the joyful sound, the song of saints on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand on Christ the rock and not on sand, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I want to scale the utmost height and catch a glimpse of glory bright, but still I'm praying till hand I've found. Lord, plant me to higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand on Christ the rock rock and not on sand, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Amen. Our final hymn is 418. 418. Oh Jesus, I have promised. 418. Oh Jesus, I have promised to serve thee to the end. Be thou forever near me, my master and my friend. I shall not fear the battle when thou art by my side. Out from the pathway, and thou wilt be my guide. Oh, let me feel thee near me. I see on the ever near. I see the sights that dazzle, the tempting sounds I hear. My foes are ever near me, around me and within. But Jesus, draw thou nearer and shield my soul from sin. O Jesus, thou hast promised to all who follow thee, that where thou art in glory, there shall my servants be. And Jesus, I have promised to serve thee to the end. Follow our Master and my friend. Amen. Job chapter 24. Job chapter 24. Job chapter 24, we shall be reading from verse 12 to 25. Job chapter 24, we shall be reading from verse 12 to 25. Job 24, verse 12. Men groan from out of the city, and the soul of the wounded crieth out. Yet God layeth not folly to them. They are of those that rebel against the light. They know not the ways thereof, nor abide in the paths thereof. The murderer rising with the light killeth the poor and needy, and in the night is as a thief. The eye also of the adulterer waiteth for the twilight, saying, No eye shall see me, and disguises his face. In the dark they dig through houses, which they had masked for themselves in the daytime. They know not the light. For the morning is to them even as the shadow of death. If no one know them, they are in the terrors of the shadow of death. He is swifter as the waters. Their portion is cursed in the earth. He beholdeth not the way of the vineyards. Drought and heat consume the snow waters, so doth the grave those which have sinned. The womb shall forget him. The worm shall feed sweetly on him. He shall be no more remembered, and wickedness shall be broken as a tree. He evil entreateth the barren that beareth not, and doth not good to the widow. He draweth also the mighty with his power. He rideth up, and no man is sure of life. Though it be given him to be in safety, whereon he resteth, yet his eyes are upon their ways. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and are brought low. They are taken out of the way as all other, and cut off as the tops of the ears of corn. And if it be not so now, who will make me a liar and make my speech nothing worth? Amen. Thank God for the reading of His most precious word. Times are not hidden from the Almighty. Part 2. This is Job's response to his friend Eliphaz. He goes to explain that God knows what is going on in this world, and God cares about what is going on around us. Although there may be injustices, it is by His permissible will that injustices and evil does exist. But true retribution comes from God. This is what Job understands of God, which is a correct understanding. That God knows what is going on, and He is infinite, eternal, and unchanging in His justice. And we can count upon Him to work out His perfect will, although we may not understand the ins and outs of the mysterious providence of God. God's people can trust Him to order all things well for His glory, as they trust Him through the seemingly injustices that goes on in life. Job speaks to us and explains from verse 2 to 11 as he shows us how in this world there is so much fallenness, there is so much sin that is going on, and men struggle in a sense when they see so much pain, so much misery in the world around us. And this was what we were looking at last week. And he went on to tell us that he turned to God. He sought the Lord. And yet, in all the happenings that is going on, the injustices, the pain, it seems as if he could not find God. And Job speaks here and lists, as we saw last week, the catastrophe that is going on in the lives of the humankind, the people around him. Some remove landmarks. Some violently take away the flocks of others. They drive away the flock of the fatherless. They take away the widow's possession. They turn the needy out of the way. When all this happens, as all this goes on, Job sought to find a reason just as he ponders what happened to him. You remember in Job chapter 1 and 2 is given to us the mysterious calamity that came upon him, how all the destructive effects came upon him. Job chapter 1, and here is given to us the succeeding events that came to Job. Verse 13 of Job chapter 1 says, "And there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest daughter's house, and there came a messenger unto Job and said, The oxen were plowing and the asses feeding them, and the Sabeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I am only escaped alone to tell thee." Oh, he lost his possessions because plunderers came and mercilessly killed all but one of his servants, and his flock was violently taken away. Verse 16, "And while he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, The fire of God is fallen from heaven and hath burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. I only am here to tell you." There was calamity from heaven, which he cannot explain. While he was yet speaking, there came also another that said, "The Chaldeans made out 3 bands and fell on the camels and have carried them away." The camels are we said the modern fleet of cars. Our modern fleet of cars, they were the transport means at that time. And I only am escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, "Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. I only am escaped to tell thee." When Job faced all this calamity, now it's one thing to face calamity or to see someone else in their misery. It is another thing when the calamity befalls us. When it comes to our turn, how will we respond? Job responded in faith. Job chapter 1 verse 20 described his response. "And then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell upon the ground and worshipped." He submitted to God, the will of God, in the most unbearable time where he could not explain what happened to him. And he said, "Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return hither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Verse 12 to verse 19 now, second thought. Righteous and wicked suffer in this world. Isn't it so true? He was, in the eyes of God, in the sight of God, a righteous man. A man who walked with God, a man who does his devotions daily. He would wake up early to pray for his children, and he would take time to set his life right before God. And so when these calamities came upon him, surely it must, if we are thinking that it would happen to us, how would you respond? How would you respond? There are those that would say, "I do not trust God anymore. Why would a loving God, a merciful God, allow calamity to come to my life? Well, this is what Job was describing for us in this text here from verse 12 to 19. Verse 12 says, Men groan from out of the city, and the souls of the wounded crieth out, yet God layeth not folly to them. It is evident that there were sorrows that were caused by oppression. And this oppression is going on not just in the faraway outskirts of the city, but it is coming to the city itself. And Job did not say how it happened. He did not describe what went on. But here it can be seen that perhaps plunderers have come and robbed and murdered the inhabitants. And then they simply run away. The earth was full of violence. And you see here, as we were studying last Lord's Day in Genesis chapter 4, concerning the life of the descendants of Cain, the men who lived without God. What kind of a life it is? Well, they go for the possessions of life, the material things of life. These are the things that they can take hold of. These are the things that would cause them to have security as they amass and as they build the biggest city, the biggest tower, the tallest tower, and they amass these possessions, these positions. Well, this is the agenda. These are the agenda of the men who live without God. Right? And we saw also polygamy in verse 19 of Genesis chapter 4. The sixth generation, Lamech, from Cain, married 2 wives. And pleasure, the emptiness of worldly entertainment, verse 20 to 22 of Genesis chapter 4. And we saw how men would persecute and prey and bully other men. How might is right in the family of Cain, in the descendants of Cain. And it was not until Genesis chapter 6 that God's judgment came to wicked men through the global flood during the time of Noah. And so as we ponder, and Job trying to reflect and explain concerning the truth that suffering comes to both the righteous and to the wicked. Solomon says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 16, And moreover I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. I said in my heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. He saw under the sun how at the place of judgment wickedness was there. At the place of righteousness, iniquity was there. How confusing it is. What a world that is so upside down. Solomon made a survey of this fallen world, and he saw evil and wickedness. He saw the outworking of sin, and he saw 2 opposing factions, the righteous and the wicked. And this is what Job's friends were trying to find a way to dislodge Job in his faith with God, that he was a man who truly live a righteous life, a life of holiness before God. And Solomon understood that this God, who is the creator and sustainer of the universe, is also a judge. Truly, if there is no judgment, we can live any way we want. But we can't, because there is a judgment. And human society tells us that that there is law and order to keep peace in human society. Where wickedness and sin abound, there is chaos, misery, pain, and sorrow. But where the law is upheld, there is righteousness and order and peace. So the Roman orator and statesman Cicero observed in his book, The Republica, he says, "There is indeed a true law, right reason, conformable to nature, diffused among all, unchanging, eternal, which is by commanding, urges to duty, by prohibiting, differs from fraud, not in vain commanding or prohibiting the good, though neither moving the wicked. This law cannot be abrogated, nor may anything be withdrawn from it. It is in the power of no synod or people to set us free from it, nor is there to be sought any extraneous teacher or interpreter of it. It shall not be one law at Rome, another at Athens, one now and another at some future time, but one law, alike eternal and unchangeable, and shall bind all nations through all time, and one shall be the common teacher, as it were, and the governor of all, God, who is himself the author, the administrator, and the enactor of this law." How accurate it is for this man to deduce the knowledge of God ruling and setting a standard for judgment for mankind. It seeks for us to be on the right side of the judge. So, in the mind of Job, he saw all these injustices and he acknowledges that there is all these injustices that's going on in the world. And he, in the back of his mind, could not explain why God allows all this to happen. Verse 13, "There are those that rebel against the lights. They know not the way thereof, nor abide in the paths. The murderer rising with the light killeth the poor and needy, and in the night as a thief." Right? There are those who hate the light. John 3:20 says, "For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved." Indeed, for those who do evil, they don't want their deeds to be exposed. And so they would perform their deeds in the darkness of the night. And here Job is saying that indeed this is true. This goes on. The murderer rising, verse 14, with the light killeth the poor and needy, and in the night is as a thief. So he tells us that indeed in this world crimes take place. Although crimes take place, but it does not escape the notice of God. God may allow it. We cannot understand why God allowed it. Just as at the beginning, in the first family, God allowed the elder brother to kill the younger brother. And then he was banished